Good morning and thank you for joining us. I am Alero Edu, welcoming you to Sunrise.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome. Hope you got your
Coco.
or
Coco.
someone has become an initiate.
Well, you all who've been watching Sunrise, you know I wasn't like this before. I have this person as my partner now, and he's bringing out all these parts of me
Well,
I didn't know existed.
You know, there's something the Yorubas say
Yeah.
that when someone gets drunk and begins to behave in a particular way, it's because he had it in him before. So, as a broadcaster, you guys taught us that, you come to broadcasting with everything.
You don't have to be crazy to work here, but
Who said that?
it helps.
But
It helps. It helps.
in other words, you need to have a bit of it. So if you don't have a bit of it, you may not have the sanity that you need. All right, good morning and welcome to the program today. How was your week? How's your week been? I don't know how many people, what kind of week a good number of people in Lagos especially would have.
COVID laden,
COVID laden, traffic laden.
nin laden.
I thought that one had abated a bit.
Well, it doesn't seem to have.
Okay.
We hear that there's been a 2-month extension, but we still see footages, we still see clips on TV of NIMSI office still crowded. And people not being able to get their NINs.
It's actually a huge responsibility on the authorities, and I hope that they really, get on this, because one would have expected that this should be a no-brainer, especially at a time when technology is very, very rife all over the world now. The most critical thing clearly remains, getting the biometrics of people, and which of course is the real security information that is necessary, that is really needed, because you can fill a form and upload it. In fact, when we spoke about this the last time, one of our guests was like, he doesn't understand why I have to download a form.
And I'm not able to submit it.
to submit it,
I have to take it physically. The hard copy.
Exactly.
To
So
the NINSI office.
It's really somehow, isn't it possible for me to download the form, fill the form, upload the form, and get a digital appointment?
Yeah.
Get that and use it to activate that same booking system that we have all talked about quite often. Yes, we know that we have a high number of people who may not know what to do. But you know that a good number of these same people we're talking about have bank accounts. And they were able to get, some of them were able to get their account numbers. They gave their biometrics.
And they have BVNs.
They have BVNs automatically. So,
Yeah.
one would assume that that's a no-brainer of sorts. Some of these same people who don't have so much education, they drive. Many of them articulated vehicles. They got their biometrics taken. So why these things are difficult for us to do?
Some of them drive, yes. Note, we're not talking about the quality of their driving. We're just saying that they drive.
They drive.
Yeah.
So,
if you can't read road signs, if you are not literate and you cannot understand or read road signs, how are you going to be a good driver?
You've just taken out on another tangent completely, and I'll really get to that. But you see, this NINSIM thing, it's really very, very crucial. Alero, the rate of kidnapping has gone high and much wider now, all over the nation. Just how many days ago we heard this report from Edo State?
Yes.
That one young man who was on his way back outside Nigeria where he came from to his base was kidnapped and killed. Guess what? The police commissioner told us that before they even got wind of the information as the police, the family had paid ransom.
Oh, and
of
he
about
was still
10 million
killed.
naira.
Oh, God.
Yet the fellow was,
Was killed.
and that's why the police was appealing. Before you take on these issues yourself, let the police know.
No.
They might be able to do something to at least follow up on these criminal elements and do the needful. But when response is slow, people really don't know what to do about stuff like that. So they have contacted the people through a phone number. That phone number should have a national identity number with which the police and security agencies can track and trace these individuals, nab them, and begin to reduce the spate of kidnapping and all of that.
That's the whole point of the NIN.
That's the whole point of
That's
the
the
NIN.
whole
But you see,
point.
that's communication.
Linking your NIN to your SIM.
SIM is not communicated to people. That information, the messaging is not reaching people in a way that people can own the process. And I think that is part of the reason that government should actually focus on now. In these 8 months, 8 weeks that we have, 2 months that we have.
The last time we discussed this matter and we had guests virtually, we raised this matter of the messaging. People don't understand why they should bother to do it because nobody has explained to them the import of linking these two things.
And that's really, really a very huge task on our hands.
I remember you asking one of our guests whose duties it was to be putting out the message.
And
National Orientation Agency, where are you?
You see, the first 3 letters of the middle name of that agency is what we really need to deal with. Translate it in Yoruba language. But another thing that we need to put out information about is on our...
Please translate.
No. You understand the language a little more. Let's go to the menu. Thank you very much. Okay, let me make it clear what I'm saying. You said National Orientation Agency. Where are you? The second word in the NOA has the first 3 letters. Has an interpretation in Yoruba language, and that's what we should begin with. Yeah.
Ori.
You said it? I didn't. That's where we should begin with. In other words, the leadership.
Man is determined to put me in trouble, but I ain't going to fall for it. I'm not going to fall for it at all. Yes, what are we going to be talking about today? By next week, the Third Mainland Bridge will be open. And I'm sure there are many of you who can't wait. Because our lives, at least those of us who live in Lagos, our lives have been upside down since those repairs began.
Just the same way our lives have not remained the same since COVID-19.
Since COVID-19 came along, COVID-19, we're focusing on you again today. COVID-19, the new variant. What you should know about it. We haven't finished dealing with the one we had. Now there are variants.
And a whole gamut of things, I tell you. We'll know more about that later in the day. And then the second item will be about the INEC's plans for new polling units. Should we be talking about new polling units or electronic voting and all of that? But then, more information on that in the course of time.
We shall crawl before we walk and run. Yes, and we
for
shall
21 years? Okay, go on.
We shall be celebrating the benefits of wetlands. What are wetlands? Well, you stick around long enough, you'll find out what they are, and you'll find out just how useful they are.
And our artist of the week has a connection of sorts with one of Nigeria's biggest music acts today. Stay on to find out who. And I think in the middle of time, we'll still be talking about what they call PSR. No, not PCR. What's that? You'll find out later. You have to write it down.
Oh my God. This man just being cryptic all day today. I'm going to be working hard to keep up with you today. So get your cocoa or your cocoa, as the case may be, and stick around and be part of the program either via Twitter or email, whichever one you decide to. Our handles will be on your screens in just a moment. See you after this break. Thank you for joining us. Of course, not surprisingly, we'll be talking about COVID all over again. And this time we'll be looking at the new variant or variants, as the case may be.
No, start with one. Just one. Start with one.
Okay, all right.
Because one is one of the names of these variants.
Okay. During the week, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, announced that it had identified 6 more cases of the B117 COVID-19 variant in the country, about a week after the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID announced that the variant is currently causing anxiety in the UK and in other parts of the world. So, of course, Nigeria is among other parts of the world. So now that the new variant is here and the numbers are increasing, what do we do? What do we need to know about this variant so we'll know exactly what to do? Does our behavior need to change in any way? These and many other questions we're going to ask our panel this morning, and that panel is made up of a lecturer and geneticist, Dr. Olushola Shokefun. Good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much for having me. It's
Anytime
nice
we're
to be
talking
here.
about COVID, you always oblige us. Thank
Well,
you.
we are here to serve.
Thank you.
And we also have a research fellow at the Department of Biochemistry and Nutrition, and he's also the team lead, Vaccine Design and Development, Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, Dr. James Ayorinde.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for joining us. So, Dr. Shokefun,
Yes, ma'am.
tell us about this new variant. How is it different from the one that we had before?
Well, the paradigm that change is the only thing that is constant. Is typified by viruses the most, because continually they must continue to adapt to the environment in which they find themselves. And this adaptation leads to being more effectively transmitted between the hosts that they have, or eluding the effect of drugs on them. They must continue to change so that they can be better adapted to cause the havoc they are out to cause. The genome of the COVID virus is a very small 31 kbps unit. And you find that on this small genome, there are several changes that we have noticed as scientists, which seemingly makes the virus better in terms of transmissibility and then in terms of morbidity in the UK. Typically, several have been characterized, but there are 3 major ones: the P1117, the P1351, and then the B1 in Brazil, in the United Kingdom, and then in South Africa. And then to a large extent, we should expect more variants because this virus will continue to change in order to make it more, less, the system will be less capable in detecting it so that they can elude the human natural method of making sure that it doesn't thrive and it doesn't.
So all the
cause
research that he is doing, this virus is changing so that it can
elude
Elude.
detection, yes, and then become more adaptable so that it can cause
In other words,
more havoc.
the virus itself is carrying out its own research on his research.
burn.
We'll talk more about that when we return from this break. Do stay with us.
God.
Proudly developed.
All right, thanks for staying with us. We just learned that while NIMA is carrying out its own research, they also have a research fellow in the Department of COVID in coronavirus country. Well, how do you respond to that, Dr. Ayorinde?
Well, as said earlier, the virus will try to adapt, and in trying to do that, to evade therapeutics, to evade vaccines. But what we need to learn about COVID is that COVID is like a change maker. So we have to learn to change the way we do things in order for us to adapt. Because change is a constant. So I think we are very resistant to change. And if we follow the normal standard COVID-19 protocols, we would have been able to curtail, or we will be able to curtail the activities of this virus almost to the barest minimum, pending the time everyone is vaccinated. So the secret is this. if we follow the COVID-19 protocol properly and get the populace or the community well vaccinated so that we can achieve herd immunity, we would reduce the chances of the virus to move from one person to another. So we have to be ready to change. But I think we are very resistant to that change, and that's the main problem.
From where you stand as a research fellow, why do you think we are resistant?
I think part of the problem is we have, aside from COVID pandemic, we also have COVID infodemic, whereby you have all sorts of information flying everywhere. So some of those information are good, some of them are bad, but we need to learn to get information from and to trust our authorities. That's one.
Trust is earned. But
Trust is earned. There's a trust deficit.
We'll come to that one, but, the part of why we are having this dearth of reaction, of people's response to the propositions or council of authorities is actually something. You talked about this infodemic, and it's not only infodemic in terms of COVID-19 alone. It's about virtually everything. Now, Dr. Shukefun, so this is the challenge that we have on our hands, and both of you have underscored, the critical characteristics of this B117 that you talked about. You talked about the fact that it has you talked about three variants. There's
three major variants.
Major variants, yes. Okay. Out of the 9 that we say we hear exist, then it becomes invisible to even the PCR.
Not invisible to the PCR.
Well, but this is what we hear about. In England, the spike gene is invisible to the DPCR probe used in England.
DPCR probe, not RT-PCR probe. There are two different things. Okay. The RT-PCR has primers that target several segments of the genome. So if it misses one in terms of mutation, it will take the other. Okay. So the RT-PCR is super, and it will just work.
Which is what we are using.
Which is what we are using. Of course, in China, for instance, there are 20 approved test methods from anosmia, loss of smell, which is 98% correlated in, infection cases and all that. But the NCDC in Nigeria says we must not use anything besides these two methods, the RT-PCR and I think the antigen test and all that. So it doesn't mean that with the mutation, it evades detection by the RT-PCR system. It doesn't mean that.
So for us in Nigeria, we can say safely that it is still detectable.
Well, of course, if we use the RT-PCR.
Okay.
Yes.
But the information that is also available to us, which you all would also want to verify, is that the discovery was confirmed in Osun and Kwara states. Now, they are not the epicenters.
Yes.
How severe a problem do we have, given that those areas have some of those places in which people do not pay much attention to all these non-pharmaceutical interventions that you have recommended?
It doesn't make it more severe. It just means that we must pay more attention to the non-pharmaceutical protocols. This is the principal thing. We tend to believe that once vaccines come, we solve the problem. No. Well, you agree with me?
My apologies. We'll come to that one. But yes. What we have been made to understand by some of the research available out there, you may also want to correct it if it's not correct, that this one is a little...
Increased mobility.
Yes. So
prevent the thing from getting from one man to another by using the non-pharmaceutical protocols. It's simple. Make sure it doesn't get from the person
A
to another person B. That solves the problem.
So, in other words, we should just adhere to those protocols strictly.
Exactly.
The challenge is there, Alero, Dr. Shuk and Dr. Yorinde. The challenge is there that people are not abiding by these things.
It's common with pandemics. And I'll give you an instance. If, I was in Hong Kong for some time. There's a mosquito variant that causes chikungunya, fever, Aedes aegypti, albopictus, and all that. Anytime I find it in my room, I make sure I kill it because I can see it physically. But you cannot see the virus physically. So to a large extent, you only tend to believe the things you see more. That's the reason why in the villages you find people in the evenings burning orange pills to scare away mosquitoes. But these are viruses that nobody has seen. So the conjecture is there that COVID, does it exist? Is it there at all? It's a big problem.
And anyway, the president came out with regulations last week Have you seen that this is having any effect on the people? Are they adhering more to these protocols?
Well, forcefully, people are beginning to adhere because we saw over the news on some closures that happened in Abuja. So forcefully, people would have to adhere. But we need to get more information out there. And for those of us who knows much about the virus, always go about with your face mask. Even if you want to go and receive somebody by your gate. Because many times, maybe the person comes, I just want to go to, if I'm doing anything outside my house, once I step out of my door, it's like this. And once it's like this, people around me would say that, what's wrong with this guy? You just want to get a loaf of bread down the street. Why are you wearing face mask? Have you seen anybody dying here? Nobody's. But the truth is, the more you do it, you sensitize others to do it. And no face masks, no entry into my home. It's simple. And let's minimize parties, gatherings. We are fond of, it's just 10 of us. It's just, we are not many, it's just, but the truth is, it's not for you. I'm not using this face mask just for myself. I'm using it for the people that I love, because you don't know the person you're going to give it to, that you're going to end the person's life. So why do you want to be a murderer? By going about...
Because you could be asymptomatic, right?
I could be asymptomatic, but I've been tested, and I'm negative at this moment.
No, I mean...
just for the sake of viewers.
Yes.
But the truth is, wear it because of the people that you love. The breadwinners of your home.
Yes.
Your boss. At times, if I feel sick, I get scared to go to my boss's office. Not because he would chastise me, but that's my boss. If anything goes wrong with my boss, a lot would happen to, whether I like it indirectly.
Your pot of soup.
To my pot of soup.
There are two other sides to that. It's a tripod that needs 3 legs to stand.
Okay.
The government hasn't put in the third leg. The masks must be provided free. That's very, very important.
We said that last week, didn't we?
In Singapore, in Hong Kong, at each bus terminal, you can pick a mask and then put it on. I mean...
First, there are 3 things come to my mind now: the president's protocols, regulations, the COVID-19 vaccines, and something that Bill Gates was ascribed to Bill Gates concerning our infrastructure. But let me start with the trust quotient that we Dr. Ayorinde talked about the other time. So that quotient, that deficiency in the trust quotient, is there in anyone in authority in Nigeria. It doesn't seem like that one is going anywhere. Now, on the one hand is that trust deficiency. On the other hand is the government's regulation and enforcement, so to speak. Where are we?
Well, enforcement, you can give instructions in Abuja. How does it get to my hometown in Agowe, for instance? How do you effect it in Agowe? How are you sure that people are not going to take advantage of that? I'm sorry, some persons in authority may just get on the street and begin to arrest people and then take money from them without enforcing that they put on the mask. There's also this side to it. If I wear my mask and I go to a Okeani market and I have the virus on the mask and I get to my house and I dispose it properly, it's like 6 and half a dozen taking it from Okeani and then coming to dump it at home where to infect people. You must also educate people on the proper disposal of the mask. That's also very, very important. You go around from 8 a.m. to about 5, and then you dispose the mask improperly. Inadvertently, you are also going to be infecting people in your locality.
Dr. Ayorinde, there's something that Professor Tomori, recommended in all of this conversation when we asked him about the regulations of the president. And he said, perhaps we should even begin with persuasive communication.
Yes. I think what we can actually achieve, we would achieve more with persuasive communication. So we need a lot of influencers, maybe online or media influencers, social media influencers, as people may have to call them, to see how we can educate people on the dangers, associated with COVID-19, and how we can just use simple methods And I must say that we did very well in the first wave, you know, by trying, even though it turned out to be a monster at the end of the day. But if we can just follow the simple protocols, get more educated, as said, on how to use the masks. Someone like me, I have a spray in my car, in my office. So if I'm removing my face mask, I spray it. And I spray it, I put it down. So in my home, we spray our face masks with 70% ethanol. In the car, I spray. If you get it, always by my side. So you spray it, you put it, at times I put it on my dashboard for heat to even help for the sun.
To kill whatever is there.
Whatever is there. Because even as it is now, I can't just drop it on this table because I have to disinfect. So when I'm leaving here, I have to put a lot of hand sanitizers on my hand, on my palm rather, and take a small swipe over or wipe over my face mask. So we need more education, and we need to learn to seek information from the right authorities. Because like I said, many times we have agencies that can give appropriate information. Many times you see something over the news and you're shocked that, but this is not the truth about this that you're saying. So obviously, people are not getting the right information they are supposed to get. Nonetheless, the trust deficit, I know that is always there. But we should also encourage, getting right information from the right authorities.
Part of the information that is out there is also about nutrition. Some have said that, look, during that first wave that you talked about, and a number of prominent Nigerians were being reported to be positive to COVID-19. They will say, they took this thing or they applied this stream of nutritional elements, and then this is what they produced. How helpful is that in the fight?
Well, of course, nutrition is always helpful in the fight of any disease that you have, so as to boost your immunity. And of course, you also need good rest and a proper well-being. But nonetheless, you can't, like I said, the infodemic aspect, there has to be proper data for you to give out any information to the public. Somebody says we use X product. The question is, do we have sufficient scientific data? Yes, the product could be working. I'm not saying the products may or may not be working. But we need to work on data to be able to say categorically, based on the data that we have, this is working. So we can't say because somebody said, I use this, and the person is prominent. We say, oh, let us all face that aspect. So it might just be the issue of the Madagascar case, where the president came on air and drank the Madagascar cocktail, and everybody followed him. But the question is, we should be asking, do we have the data? Can we see the data? How reliable is the data? Because data is very important.
In parenthesis, since you mentioned the cocktail, we heard that some of it was sent to Nigeria and it was being tested. We have not heard the outcome of that.
Yes, so that's part of asking the right authorities for some of the outcome. Yes.
It's not your institute that's working on that.
Well, we worked partly on it.
Okay.
And at the time it was sent, we had not grown the virus.
Okay.
Because if you want to test it at times, you want to see how you would reduce the growth of the virus in the lab first. But we don't have, then you have to do some other tests that, other level of test that relies on you having the technical expertise to grow the virus, which we've been able to do now. So as at that time, we could only do safety studies, how safe it is. Efficacy is a big problem because, and after doing the laboratory experiments, don't forget that we have the clinical aspect, the clinical trials, which is a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy that you may not get the desired result in the short time that the world was, anxious to say that, oh, it's working, it's working.
I don't know if you have seen the video that's making the rounds on social media where a guy is asking questions about the vaccine.
Yeah, I've seen
You've
it.
seen it.
I've seen it. Yes.
So he asked a question such as, so if I take the vaccine, can I catch it again? And the answer is no. If I do this, can I get reinfected? You know, all kinds, and the answers, all the questions he asked, to all of them, the answer was no. And of course, at the end of it all, his question is, so why should I take the vaccine?
I did say that with the vaccine, it's not huru yet. I just said that if the vaccine is 80% effective, you need to vaccinate the 60% of the population to just say that at least we're at a modicum level. If it's 60% effective, you need to take about 90% of the population. So the vaccine is not all there is. The vaccine will, to a large extent, reduce the severity if you are infected. If ever you get infected, at least the severity of the infection will be modified. That is guaranteed. So let us not bother.
Not eradicated.
So,
Vaccines don't eradicate. Vaccines, to a large extent, have a way of reducing the severity, just in case you are, should or in case
so
you are
we should
infected.
have reduced mortality.
Of course, reduce.
When-
In fact, reduce severity. You will not even get out of your house to treat it if you are vaccinated.
Okay.
That is assured.
Okay.
With all vaccines. Let me tell you that there's principles of immunogenicity with vaccines. There are strains. A vaccine that is effective for strain A may not be effective for strain B.
Raising that
for
other
instance.
problem.
Raising another problem entirely.
So we have to start afresh because all of the vaccines, all of the research that has been produced until
it's an
now,
unfolding scenario that
Yes.
we must continue to
Research.
Let us,
research and follow.
as neophytes, as naive people, let us ask those trivial questions. So we have been, the vaccine that is out now is for the first strain.
I'm not saying that conclusively. I'm just saying that there's a problem of immunogenicity with vaccines generally. If it's effective for strain A, it may not be effective for strain B.
We are saying the same thing, sir. So
It may not. No, he said
Yes.
may.
So,
May is a month. Oh, sorry.
first and foremost, I think I'd like to contribute to what he has said in the sense that why should I take the vaccine? I think the person should take the vaccine. The reason is this. Once you get infected with an infectious agent or a pathogen or the virus, let's use the word the virus, you develop immunity, right? And we've discovered that over the time, maybe for like 6-8 months, you could have antibodies. Those are the soldiers that help fight against infection. And at maybe some time, it begins to wane. The antibodies, that's what we've seen, and that's why people can be reinfected with COVID. So the fact that you've had COVID before does not mean that
You will
can't
not have it again.
You will not have it again. So what the vaccine usually will do is to help raise the soldiers.
Okay.
So that if I have taken the vaccine and I've never been infected, I'll have the soldiers raised. So if I meet somebody like, I'm sorry, if he is asymptomatic, then the soldiers will be able to fight the virus immediately. And if I meet him, I will not be able to transmit the virus to him because the soldiers would have held the virus captive in me.
Yeah.
And by so doing, we've done something. We've broken the chain of transmission.
Okay.
And achieve the herd immunity.
And achieve the herd immunity we're talking about. But to now think that the vaccine, like what he has said, would protect you forever, or it may not.
May not. Okay.
But isn't
All right.
that, isn't
Staying
that
with
part
you.
of the, my
Okay.
apologies, Alora. Isn't that also part of there's a little bit of a problem in that? So, because we have heard professionals like you tell us that you need to take 2 shots within X space of time.
It depends on what vaccine you are taking.
Okay.
The recent Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you only
Just
need
one.
one shot.
One
Yeah.
shot.
You only need one shot.
Pfizer-
And that's
Pfizer is
also
2.
that's also more suited for environment because it doesn't need the minus 70 temperature to keep it.
Okay.
So it's currently being put forward for emergency authorization use, and that will come up sometime next week and all that. So we can expect it in the coming weeks.
Now, Doctor, in the last 4 to 6 weeks, there's been talk about this, what I have decided to call a magic drug that seems to work wonders when it comes to COVID-19. ivermectin.
Yes.
Yes. Tell us about ivermectin, because some doctors have said that they used to use it to treat onchocerciasis. It was for the treatment of worms.
Yes.
So how come it seems to be so effective?
I came across ivermectin in 1994. Late Professor Eugene Ogumba was in charge of the onchocerciasis control program in the Southwest, and I worked closely with him. Ivermectin has been recently found to have a three-pronged approach of stopping the virus from multiplying. So if the viral load is minimal, of course you are not likely to come up with the disease. You are pegging the population from coming up. And it's been tested. There are, several publications that indicate that currently. It may not be the magic drug, but in principles, it's been used in India, in the UK, in US, and all that. And they are finding that it's been fairly effective in reducing the viral load. The problem is that once the virus gets in and it begins to multiply, then it will go across the system, get on the lungs and all that. If you can get a drug that stops it from multiplying, then the severity will be minimized until the body is able to fight it.
The discussion on ivermectin is not over yet, but we need to take a short break. There's still plenty we want to talk about that drug. See you after this break. Thank you for staying with us. Still on ivermectin, Dr. Shokefun. There's also plenty of talk about its prophylactic use. Please advise us on that.
Nobody should use any drug without the doctor's prescription.
Okay.
I must say that with a lot of emphasis. Nobody must use anything apart from taking water without doctor's prescription. That's also very, very important.
Okay.
On the other side of it, the corollary is that the government must also do its bit to be updated. There are so many things that are coming up: intubation, evacuation of what you have in the lungs so that the person can breathe better and all that. These are advances that are coming up. In India, anosmia as an indication of infection, so that you don't need to use the RT-PCR and all that. Correlation is about 98% between the anosmia and the RT-PCR, so it's cheaper, less than 20 naira and all that. These are things that we must continue to work along with so that we are not dependent on somebody in Badagry running to Ikeja to have a test. That's not.
There's also that conversation that was initiated. Are you down about this? Before I'm accused again. There's also this conversation, that was initiated, along this whole fight as well. And that is the improvement of health infrastructure in the country. Of course, the PTF chairman had said that he didn't know that we had such the problem of health infrastructure was as vast and big and large as it was when he became PTF, COVID-19 chairman. But as a result of that, Bill Gates was quoted as saying that he would suggest that Africa, of course, including Nigeria, should prioritize improving health infrastructure in the country as opposed to buying or getting the vaccines. Prioritize health infrastructure over the vaccines. How would you react?
I just said that with the vaccine, it's not yet Uhuru. So health infrastructure is important. In the genomic surveillance system of the UK, there are about 600 institutions checking for variants and their adverse effects. Are we doing that in Nigeria? The universities are typically, I'm sorry to say this, like glorified secondary schools, typically by European standards. So the universities must also, to a large extent, be empowered to be able to do research. Training in virology, bioinformatics, genomics. These are things that are not just in place in Nigerian universities. We know a lot of the theory, but the practical thing is not there.
Well, talking about theory, Dr. Ayorinde, it brings us to the research end. A good number of people, including, of course, NIMA, NIPRID, NAFDAC, every one of them is coming up with one, measure of research or the other. I remember, was it 2 weeks ago? We had the NAFDAC DG was saying that even though people say that certain nutritional stuff that we have in Africa, local nutrition, are good to fight some diseases, the challenge we have with that is in both the facts of it and the data of it. And you have also talked about that one. So talking about, improving the health infrastructure, what is our capacity versus our deliverable in terms of funding for research in our country?
Oh, thank you very much. Like I said, COVID is a game changer.
It should be a game changer.
It should be. No, but to a certain extent,
you don't believe it is yet?
We didn't have we had very few PCR labs in the country pre-COVID. But now you have RT-PCR almost everywhere in the country. But we should also take note of that. We are more of a responding society. We are not a preparing society. So we are responding to COVID, and we want miracles to happen now. It's not possible. Let's be honest with ourselves. The vaccines you have ready out there, they've been working on them for like 10 years. You have some research products that we have, they've been on them for like 10 years. Yes, what have we been doing in the past so many years? Of course, we have our challenges. But now that COVID has come, like what happened in China, like I was telling him before we got in here, that when SARS came to China, the Chinese government began to invest heavily in bioinformatics, genetic sequencing. They started seeing the biotech industry as an opportunity for growth, which is now what China has now. So we also have to see the case of COVID, aside from the bad side, also see the good side and take advantage, whereby universities can be empowered to do a lot of research. Imagine if university like LASU could handle or epidemiological surveillance around Badagry axis or Jaw axis.
Where you have massive population.
Where you have massive population.
In clusters.
You have the one in Ekpe doing something. You have all the near tertiary healthcare institutions doing one, empowered to do one thing or the other.
Yes.
But the truth is, most of these things cannot happen overnight because we know where we are all coming from. So we have to take advantage of this situation and see how everybody can come together, both government, private, individuals, like the BioNTech vaccine, designed by a private firm, not by the government. Right? The best that the government will do is to provide an enabling environment. Protect your market so that you can reap your investment. So it's not just looking at it from the healthcare.
Yeah.
We have to look at it holistically and take advantage of this issue.
But Dr. Ayanride, you will agree that in Nigeria, we're all waiting for government to fund research. And that is not what obtains in other places. There's plenty of private sector participation in this area. How do you think that we can encourage private sector to show more interest in research so that we can get the kind of environment you're talking about?
I think the private sector should, first and foremost, like I said, education. We need to see the biotech industry as a new opportunity, like this fintech. Fintech came in, fintech became a new opportunity. And everybody is investing in fintech now. So biotech is a new opportunity. And people should ask questions. I give you this X amount of money. Since the money is not coming from the government, I expect you to be able to deliver in this amount of time. What can we get out of it? How can government help us protect it if we get something out of it? So I think the private companies too would say that we have a lot of challenges, financial challenges, and all of that. But the truth is, if we don't produce anything, we would forever be dependent. These problems will persist.
This is looking like a vicious cycle to me, yes.
So, and we'll keep saying government.
If the environment is not there for them to do business and thrive, they will not have the money, extra money, to invest in research.
So that's another circle.
Well, Dr. Shokefung,
Yes,
still talking about the same research and solutions and futuristic perspectives. I don't know which of the people in your industry said, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. We know that in Africa, there is quite a lot. I was with a friend yesterday who was telling me that there is a particular kind of plant that grows, guess where? Beside drainages in Africa. But that in Asia, it is what they consume the most as medicinal, of high medicinal value for certain medical conditions. And we have these things in abundance in Nigeria and in Africa and things like that. So in terms of research in nutritional medicine, what, do you see a future for us there? Because you would agree with it, may agree with a number of people who have said that there are quite elderly people who had this information. Many of them have passed on with all of this wonderful information, and they weren't able to impart them to anyone. So in terms of tracking all these things for future use, where do you see us? Do you see any opportunity for us? Do you see any orientation in the mind of any one agency or individual to go in that trajectory?
Well, it's about the government taking the lead, although they must be propped by the other sectors, the universities, the research sector, and all that. Let me digress a bit. Look at the amount of money we spend in importing pineapples from Benin Republic.
Oh my God.
The Benin Republic type of pineapple. Look at the amount of money we spend in importing methionine and lysine for the poultry industry. Look at the amount of money we spend in importing fish meal from Denmark. And we've been doing this for 40, 50 years.
Wow.
And there's no government, plan in place,
Policy.
to make sure that this doesn't happen. Fish meal we can replace by several other things that we can culture in Nigeria. So there must be people in government who know what we should do. That's very, very important.
But
let me also give another example, maybe not very congruent. I bought a bag of rice as a child in Igbobi College, the commodities market, at about 20-25 naira at that time. And then we opened our eyes wide, and rice became 28,000 naira. When you have several localities or locations in Nigeria that are growing the local rice that we can improve or may have been improved across the 30 years, but we are not doing anything. So we are dependent on France, on India, Thailand, and all that for rice. Imagine what amount of money we spend in getting this.
But going to what Alero said the other time about the private sector taking initiative,
yes.
If we have a private sector interest or investor that says, okay, rather than wait on Denmark and all these other countries for these things that you talked about, fish meal, fish feed,
methionine, lysine,
all those things.
Yeah, yes.
What if a private sector person watching us right now would say, wow, I didn't know that was happening. I could take a lead in this. What would it take for them? What do they need to know? What are the opportunities?
When someone who knows what he's doing, principally, some element of putting pen to paper to make sure that both ends are guaranteed.
So that's
also
G to G.
Yes, that's also very, very important. If I'm putting 50 million, I want to be sure that I don't get midway and I'm swindled. And then the appropriate government policy. That's also very, very important. Very, very, very important. If the government isn't backing the whole thing, it will crumble across time.
So the government has to put a policy.
Yes, yes.
Is it a problem of policy now or enforcement of those policies or execution of those policies?
No, even from the conceptualization.
All of the above.
Most persons in government don't know what government is supposed to be doing.
Uh-oh.
I say that with a lot of emphasis. Most persons in government don't know what government and governance is all about. Why will you allow our universities to be in this state after 40 years, 50 years of university education, when these doldrums up until now?
And
It's a
after
shame.
you have had universities that have been among the best in the world.
In those days, people used to come to UCH for treatment. The reverse is the case now.
Interesting.
Okay, just before we call it a day, we have been told that Ewedu does fantastic things to the body concerning COVID. How true is that?
Ewedu is good. Bryophyllum is good.
What's that?
What's
Bryophyllum. I've forgotten the Yoruba name. We used to put it in our books in those days, and then it grew the adventitious roots. There's a Yoruba name for it. Ewedu is good. Bryophyllum is good. Lemongrass is good because it has zinc. What the virus does is that it knocks out the prosthetic group, the iron prosthetic group. So if zinc is present, It stops it from doing this. It is not to be relied on totally, and then you don't wear your mask. Or
What about lemon?
lemongrass, I said that. Lemongrass, lemon is
You said
good.
lemongrass.
Lemon is also good because of vitamin
What about
C.
lemon itself?
Yeah, it's good because
Okay.
of vitamin C.
Okay.
What you are doing by that is to shore up your immune system, shield or in case anything comes in.
Okay.
Interesting. So now
Doctor-
we're going to run out of lemon. Okay. Please go
Olusho,
on.
we have already. Dr. Olushola Sokefun, lecturer, LASU, and a geneticist. Thank you very much for coming, as well as Dr. James Ayorinde, research fellow at the Department of Biochemistry and Nutrition, and he's also team leader, Vaccine Design and Development, Nigeria Institute of Medical Research. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I think that we are better enlightened for
Absolutely.
having you this morning. Thank you very much. Sunrise will be back in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Please join us.
Well, thanks for staying with us. You are aware, for those who have been following the news, and if you are not, well, be informed. Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, proposed the creation of more polling units to chairmen and other stakeholders of various political parties. This is what we want to take a look at right now. Why is this necessary? And what elements of the electoral reforms that's so much talked about is this initiative of INEC? Festus Keyamo joins us this morning. He is National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee of the body. He joins us from Kontagora, along with Wale Ogwade, who is
Okoye.
President. Festus Okoye, yes. Yes. Along with Wale Ogwade, who is President of Voter Awareness Initiative. Both, of course, join us virtually. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Ms. Okoye, you want to give us a quick background?
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. You want to give us a quick background of how come we're here and what's new in this? How relevant is it? And what element of the electoral reform that we talked about is it?
Well, you know that access to polling units is central to the realization of the fundamental right of people to make their own choices and choose the leaders of their choice. And now, the last time we had new polling units in Nigeria was in 1996, and that is almost 25 years ago. And during this particular period, the total projected voter population in Nigeria was estimated at around 50 million. Now, we had the 1999 general elections with a voter population of 57 million. The polling units in Nigeria still remain static at 119,973. Now, during the 2007 elections, the voting population of Nigeria was around 61 million. The polling units still remain static at 119,973. During the 2011 general elections, we had a voting population, a registered voting population of 73 million. No new polling units were created. The same thing for 2015 elections. Now, during the 2019 elections, we had a total registered voting population of 84 million. The polling units still remained the same. So based on these variables, based on this reality, the Commission kept on engaging in what we call stopgap measures or ad hoc measures in order to create better access, in order to expand access to the voting units. Now, in 2007, because of the growing number of registered voters, the Commission created what we call baby units with a mother polling unit. But this did not go far enough, and the problem still persisted. Then in 2011, the Commission now created what we call voting points, in which case, when we
Oh, my apologies. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have him back. But Mr. Wale Ogwade, if you don't mind, do this in like 30 seconds just to take your opening comment before we take a break. How much of a game changer do you see this being? Okay, well, I guess we don't have Mr. Ogwande yet, but let's take a short break. Maybe by the time we come back from this break and these messages, it'll be ready. So please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. So, Mr. Ogwande, if you can hear me, how much of a game changer do you see these INEC plans for new polling units?
Yeah, it's something we have clamored for over the years. That's Voters Awareness Initiative. And we are happy that indeed it has fallen on good ears now and it is being given the attention required. Because obviously the rule is that once you are 18 years old, you become eligible to vote. And if you don't vote, then obviously automatically you are disenfranchised. That's the technical language used in the electoral system. And if one is disenfranchised, then definitely he cannot be involved because the government, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So to us, it's a welcome development, and we know that obviously it will be done. I want to rely on the statistics and all the data released by Festus Okoye. Obviously, he is in charge because he has all the data, so I won't want to go, well, so far the data he has released are in order. And of course, I know that the last time we have constituency delimitation was in 1996 before the democracy came up. And we know that in between then and now, that's close to 25 years ago, most of those who were delimited then, who got involved in the process, are almost grandfathers now. Some of them may not even be able to go out to register, not to talk of voting. So it's a welcome development, and we really appreciate INEC for being in tandem with the views and the wishes of the people.
Okay.
Mr. Ogwande, do you think that this initiative will encourage more people to come out and vote?
Obviously, because I'm involved in this process. You see some people who travel far and wide, in the rural areas. And I will give a very good example in Lagos so that it doesn't seem, well, I will go to some place because I know that people, this program is watched like all over Nigeria and even all over the world. Let's say in Lagos, someone lives in Alimosho, let's say Yanopaja. And of course, he lives inside a place called Ayobo, and his voting point is in Yanopaja or somewhere now one estate. If he has to vote, then he has to trek. You know that on election day, the country is locked down. So he has to trek because God helps him if he's found driving and he's not an official, he will be prosecuted or he'll be arrested or molested. So that one will discourage going to vote. But now, with this project now, there will be an election point, a voting point rather, near his house. So let's look at somebody who stays in Benin, in Igwebe, and he has to go to somewhere like Afuze to go and vote. Obviously, that's another place entirely. And of course, he has to travel. Then maybe let's go to Ibadan. Then somebody is living in Busogboro, or now he used to stay somewhere around Ojo. You know what it will take without transportation. Do I need to go on? So to me, it will encourage voter participation and reduce seriously voter apathy.
Well, interesting that you mentioned the voter apathy part, but let me take this back to Mr. Okoye. You have already talked about holding further talks, engagements, and all of that with various other interest groups, stakeholders, as you call them, all over the nation. But from the meeting that you had with various political parties, what was your reading?
Well, as you know, we had a meeting with the leaders of political parties yesterday, and 17 political parties attended that consultative meeting. There was a general consensus that the issue of expanding voter access to polling units is a national concern, and that we should build a national consensus around the establishment of additional polling units. For instance, if you look at the polling units, some of the polling units we have in Nasarawa State, there's a polling unit we call Maraba Garage 1 and Maraba Garage 2. Between the two polling units, we have a total registered voting population of 25,275. So, more often than not,
voting hardly takes place in these two polling units because of disruption, and sometimes when it takes place, because of the challenges we encounter as a result of crowd surge, some of the results are more or less cancelled. So in between these polling units, we have almost 70 voting points. Now, these polling units were established at a time when Karu area was not really served by so many people. Now there has been population explosion, there have been new settlements, and so on and so forth. So what we are saying is that some of these voting points that we have created out of the existing polling units, we need to take the voting points to the people rather than the people chasing the voting points. Because on election day, some people trek almost 10 kilometers in order to come and vote. And if you are talking about persons with sight impairment, persons with other forms of disability, they have to move 10 kilometers to these polling units to go and access these polling units. So what we are trying to do is to encourage people to access these polling units, because there's a correlation between these overcrowded polling units and issue of voter apathy. So we want to move these voting points closer to the people that need them. And that's exactly the intendment of this particular process.
A number of people, Mr. Okoye, would probably suggest that rather than open more polling units, what's wrong with the electronic voting? That would make it even closer to people. I mean, they can literally vote in the very comfort of wherever it is that they are, rather than as opposed to moving around, especially at a time that we're talking about, social distancing and all of that. How do you respond?
Well, there are different aspects and different variables of electronic voting. The one you are really suggesting is internet voting. But, we need to do a gradual and graduated approach to deepening the use of technology in the electoral process. What the Commission is planning at present is the introduction of electronic voting machines in the electoral system. And in these electronic voting machines, they have to also be domiciled in the various polling units. So people still have to go to the polling units in order to go and access this. Then thereafter, we can now be looking towards people voting in the comfort of their homes, because as you know, the Nigerian population is segregated in different areas. We have those in the urban areas, we have those in the rural areas, we have people who are literate, and we have people who are not literate. We have people who have smartphones and those who do not have smartphones. And then we have areas that are served by the major networks and areas that are completely not served by the major networks. So we have to take all these things into consideration in designing a framework that guarantees access to all eligible voters in the electoral system. So I agree with you. We must gradually move towards internet voting. But as at now, we are looking at the introduction of electronic voting systems. And in this system, you must still take it to the people that need them. And that's exactly where we are as at now.
Mr. Okoye, the way you have explained it sounds like a no-brainer. So how come it took the electoral umpire 25 years to get on with this?
Well, you see, in 2014, the Commission attempted to create 30,027 additional polling units. But that process and that program did not succeed because it was politicized. But after we reviewed the entire situation, we also came to the conclusion that maybe the reason why we didn't succeed in creating additional or establishing additional polling units was because we didn't do sufficient consultation. We didn't really explain to Nigerians and the main stakeholders in the electoral process what the intentions of the Commission were. So many people read the intentions of the Commission differently. Some claim that the Commission was trying to favor one geopolitical zone against the other. So that is why we now decided very early enough, before the repoliticking starts for the 2023 elections, to engage the critical and main stakeholders, lay out our process and our programs, be inclusive and be consultative, and make sure that we get all the right things done, and lay all the things before the main stakeholders so that they will appreciate the enormity of the problem. You can imagine a situation where 25,000 persons approach 2 polling units on election day. No election can take place. So, and then you create additional 70,000 voting points in the same vicinity. It's a recipe for crisis. It's a recipe for confusion. And we are trying to make sure that people do not go to the polling units to suffer, because that is their first point of contact with the electoral process. And so we have tried various mechanisms and various things in the past that didn't work. And then during the 2019 elections, we created a total of 57,023 voting points and voting point settlements. So what we are trying to do is move these voting points and voting point settlements to the people that desire them, move it closer to the people, because new settlements are growing every day. New residential areas are being established every day, and they are not served. Now, in 1996, for those who live in Abuja, you can imagine the Gwagwalada area. The same number of polling units they had in 1996 are the same number of polling units they have as of today. So that, for us, does not make sense anymore. So that's why we have laid everything before the Nigerian people, before the political parties. We are going to meet with civil society groups and organizations on Tuesday, and then with all the various stakeholders, so that we can put these things on the table. But the political parties told us very clearly that there is no debate relating to this particular issue, that they face it, they know the challenges, and they adopted the proposal of the commission to convert these voting points and voting point settlements into polling units and taking it to the people that need them. And we are very, very happy with the outcome of yesterday's meeting.
Well, Mr. Ogunade, the constituency that we are speaking with now are those who are more of those people who, as you said earlier, were part of the process from the very, very beginning, in the 90s and the rest of that. But today, the largest number of people who vote in the country are youths. How significant, from your perspective, is this move by INEC to this young population we're talking about?
Well, the future belongs to the youth, but be that as it may, either youth or old, just as I said earlier on, is the right of every individual living and who is strong enough, even if he's not strong, if he's sick. On election day, I've seen several people who have been moved on wheelchair, who are sick, who have been moved on wheelchair to voting points to vote. So the issue really is not about youth, it's about opening up the space for everyone to be involved. I just want to correct a point by my brother Okwe. The polling points, the voting points that they established is not the same thing as what they are doing now. The polling units that they established then was just to expand the space, because every polling unit is just to take 500 people at most. But because of the surge, or because of the population explosion, they had to create more polling units, polling points in each polling unit. So, let me just give an example. In Lokoja, during the last gubernatorial election, there's a polling unit called Ganaja. In Ganaja area, they have up to 17 polling points there. Ordinarily, it should be one, but because of there was no, this elimination did not take place, then they have to expand. So it's the same thing, because people who live around that environment, even towards going to Ajaokuta, they have to walk down to that Ganaja inside Lokoja town to come and vote. I guess maybe they read one of the reports of our people, because after any election, those of us who are accredited to monitor elections or observe elections write our various reports to them. And of course, he mentioned one which is very important, that because of the large number of people there, imagine 17 points in a place inside a school compound. Obviously, it was crowded, it was rowdy, and of course, we are not surprised that guns were shot and so many things happened that day. But be that as it may, I guess those things have been written in the report, they have studied it. With this now, it means that they are proactive, and I appreciate them for that. So now coming to the issue of the expanding the coast. Obviously, there is no going back. Nobody will say no, because everyone, we have seen that democracy has come to thrive in this country. Just as it happened in America, Trump thought he was a strong man and he could do and undo, but the people showed him that indeed power belongs to them. as it belongs to any place where there is democracy. And the people want to exercise their franchise, and they will exercise their franchise. It's not about awareness is about enlightenment, and it's about INEC itself creating the enabling environment for all these things to thrive. Then we'll have a successful election. Then about the voters, the electronic voting that you asked about. He is a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, and he knows that he voted in the last election from the comfort of his home or anywhere he was. He did not go to anywhere to queue. We'll go there, we'll get there. If somebody like Michael Festus Okoye is in the commission, I know that by serious engagement, they will see reason and will begin to engage members of the National Assembly. We have ideas, and maybe after this, I will relate with him, if it is called, then we'll talk. Then we'll know how to move it further. We have ideas in voters' awareness, how we can move this and ensure that indeed, even the rural area person will be able to vote, and will reduce this lockdown. Locking down the country on election day is a huge stress on the economy, is a huge stress on people's life itself, is a huge loss on freedom of movement and so on and so forth. So we have to look at issues. It's not only Nigeria that they vote on election day, where they will lock up the country and people will just stay at home doing nothing. Sometimes it creates room for stress. So we'll look at that. I hope they will be able to have an opening here to listen to us and give us the opportunity to express our idea. It was like this, that a meeting like this, that we were able to serialize voters' card. That because before the voters' card was not serialized. That's why you saw people stealing, and of course they call it ballot box snatching then. But we brought an idea to our Jega then, and he accepted. And today, the issue of snatching of voters' ballot boxes are reduced, because if you snatch a ballot box in point P, you can't use it in point C because it is serialized, it is numbered. I hope they will understand, and of course, we'll relate with each other. I guess the issue of expanding the post is non-negotiable, and we thank God that at least we've gotten to that level.
Mr. Okwande, staying with you, you are the president of the Voters Awareness Initiative. It's one thing to have more polling units, but it is people who are duly registered who are going to go there to use the units. People who are going to vote. What is your initiative doing about sensitizing people to register and ensure that they have their PVCs in readiness for the elections?
So in fact, on the 6th of January, we invited Nigerians and indeed the world that Voters Awareness will be carrying out a series of voter.
Oh dear. I guess that's just one of those things that happen with technology. But let's take this back to Mr. Okoye. So I don't know if you want to respond to some of the things that you've heard Mr. Okwande say, Mr. Okoye.
Sorry?
Yes, I had him. Let me make the point that as of today, we have a total of 119,973 polling units. These are the polling units established in 1996, 25 years ago. Now, because of growth in population, because of the establishment of new areas and new settlements, the commission started with an ad hoc measure of creating what we call baby units. From the baby units, we graduated to the creation of voting points. And then after the area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, we established what we called, in 2016, we established what we call voting point settlements. So going into the 2019 elections, the commission had the original 119,973 polling units. And also, we established a total of 57,023 voting points. So what happens is that for each voting point, there is a polling unit. If in Maraba Garage, we establish 70 voting points, the moment elections are over in those voting points, the results from the voting points will be sorted out and calculated and entered into from EC8A VP, into from ECE8A voting point, and taken to the main polling unit for integration and calculation. It is that integration and calculation that sometimes causes challenges. when you integrate and calculate, sometimes there's overvoting in a particular voting point. And then when they take it to the main polling unit for integration, sometimes the party agents will insist that since there was overvoting in one polling unit, it has affected the entire polling unit. And then it leads to all sorts of challenges. But I agree that, one, the issue of voter access is key to the exercise of the democratic rights of the people. Under Section 42 of the Electoral Act, the Commission has been given the right to establish sufficient number of polling units and allocate voters to those polling units. So it is an administrative thing. It's an administrative right that has been given to the Commission to carry out. But, because of the challenges we've had in the past, in challenges of politicization and challenges of inadequate consultation, we now decided to consult and lay out our plans on what we want to do. We want a situation where polling units will be located in good places. We don't want polling units in shrines anymore. We don't want polling units in forests. We want polling units to be located in places where the secrecy of the votes can be guaranteed. We also want polling units to be located in places where we can observe all the COVID-19 protocols and also guarantee good voting experience for the Nigerian people. So I completely agree with some of the points my friend has made. But in relation to the issue of internet voting, you will agree with me that those who vote in the Nigerian Bar Association are not the same color, so to say, demographically, with the Nigerian people. There are some Nigerians who do not even know what is called smartphone, and you can't disenfranchise them. There are some Nigerians who cannot afford it in the first place, and you can't disenfranchise them. There are Nigerians who live in places that any of the networks has not even reached. You can't disenfranchise them. So what we are trying to do is to move towards a particular direction. And I believe that as time goes on, after we introduce the electronic voting machines, there may be the possibility of segregating so that some people will be voting using the electronic voting machines and some people will be doing internet voting from the comfort of their homes. So I believe that we have the courage and we are determined to deepen the use of technology in the electoral process, but we want to do it in such a way that the issue of access to the polling units will be guaranteed to every voter who has registered to vote and who is willing to vote.
Every Nigerian having a national identity number, it'll be so much easier for us to vote and not necessarily go, you don't necessarily have to have a digital device of your own. You should be able to use your personal information, such as the national identity number, to vote on any device, something that you also referenced the other time. Well, Mr. Ogande, you were making some point the other time, but add to that, what kind of expectations, what kind of things you think INEC should be expecting, especially when these other consultations with other, stakeholders, socio-cultural groups and all, when they hold those meetings, those interventions, what are the things that are likely to come out, especially when INEC is interfacing with them, and what are the things Nigerians should expect from such interventions?
Well, they should expect an upsurge. For them, they should just roll their sleeves and start working. Brother Bear has already said it, that the people are waiting. If the political parties are in sync with them, then definitely it won't be otherwise for Nigerians. It won't be otherwise with Nigerians. It can't be. So the issue is that the Nigerian people are really in need of this development. This will not be objected to by anybody, any right-thinking person, a lover of democracy. We want the electoral process to be expanded. So INEC should just up its games, engage all the relevant stakeholders, including members of the National Assembly and civil society, traditional, everybody, because all of us are voters in this place. All of us. There's nobody who can come out and say, I'm not a voter per se. Nobody. We are all voters, and of course, we want the place to be a better place. And my brother raised some issues. Ordinarily, I won't want to, we lawyers like arguing, and he is a lawyer equally. And I will just, what we do is that we say we have a right of reply, but I'll suspend my right of reply until we meet physically so that we'll now discuss all these issues. Just as I said, I've thrown a challenge to him. Let us relate and let's discuss and see how we can help INEC too. Nobody is a monopoly of knowledge. We have one or two ideas that you can use in making up it. In the area of electronic voting, because you agree with me that not many people, those who are not in the signal area of the internet coverage are far, far, far insignificant. Majority of the Nigerian people are covered by the signal. So we'll see what we'll do about that. I won't go far more than that so that we move forward. Thank you.
Okay. Every conversation on television or radio or even in the media space generally is never to conclude it there. It's just to start the conversation. And it's gratifying that at least this conversation has started. Well, we have to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us this morning. Mr. Okoye is National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education with INEC, as well as Mr. Wale Ogunade, who is President of Voter Awareness Initiative. Both of them joined us virtually. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning. Sunrise is back in a moment. Do stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. Now we have a celebration on our hands. Yeah, but it's not the kind that you gather, you know. COVID-19 says no crowds, social distance, and all that. We are celebrating wetlands. You might say, what are those? Well, we'll get there in a minute, but the World Wetland Day is celebrated every February the 2nd. This day is marked to recognize the influence and positive production that wetlands have had on the world and in terms brings communities together for the benefit of Mother Nature. The theme for this year is wetlands and water. What does all this mean? Well, we have in the studio Joseph Onoja, who's Technical Director, Nigeria Conservative Foundation. Good morning.
Good morning, Darren.
As well as the environmental apostle, evangelist, or whatever you decide to call him. Of course, you know who I'm talking about, Desmond Majekodunmi. Good morning, Desmond.
Good morning to you.
What are you today? Evangelist? Apostle?
I am now just a gardener of creation.
Okay, so good to have you with us, Gardener Desmond. Let me start with you since I have you on in view already. Now, first of all, what are wetlands?
Yes, wetland na poto. Abi you sabi that one?
That's pretty much. That's actually.
It's
Okay, we all understand
That's quite a summary. That's quite a summary,
yes.
But for those who keep.
However, it's unfortunately, it's quite a derogatory. Sounds a bit derogatory, but they're actually the most important biome system that we have. They contain over 40% of all species life is there in the wetlands. And, we're talking of water bodies, we're talking of marsh, we're talking even of coral reefs, anywhere that becomes, very, very wet, either seasonally or permanently, is a wetland. Extremely, extremely important biome. And unfortunately, we treat it like poto, as if it's nothing, but it's actually one of the most important life support systems that the miracle of creation has for our planet.
Okay. Let me ask Mr. Onoja, what is the benefit of poto? Let me just use the word that Desmond has used.
All right, thank you very much for having me on an important day like this. And I must just mention that I have the strength to come here because my number one supporter, my mom, just past 3 weeks ago, but I have the strength to be able to come here because it's something that she would love me to do. And also to continue to push the message out there. And talking about the environment and talking about wetlands, as my boss pointed out, Mr. Majo Kudomi, that's what we consider as Poto. But this year's theme is about wetlands, water, and life. And they call it that inseparable. They are inseparable. Now, usually we see them as wastelands. We see them as places where it's useless. But they are very, very important, especially for a city like Lagos. And because of the way that we have handled our wetlands, we are seeing some backlashes and some repercussions which are not positive.
Well, now that you put it that way, the natural question that I would want to ask you is, as at now, what's the percentage of our national life that is poto or wetland, to use the technical language? And is that a good thing or it's a bad thing?
Okay, well, for the percentages, we may not be able to really quantify it, but I know that we have about 11 wetlands of international importance. They are called the Ramsar sites. And Ramsar, yes, is a city in Iran. And that was why it was a day that was declared. That's why it's celebrated on the 2nd of February. So we have 11 of those. And that is how we quantify it in Nigeria. We have 11 of those. Now, to just show you how important these places are, we have one very significant one in what we call the Hadejanguru wetlands. It's so important that it's one of the tributaries of the Lake Chad. And if you know what is happening to the Chad is drying up. So, and you see the repercussion. So I'm just trying to point out to you the importance of such places, that when anything negative happens to them, you find out that the repercussions are not just ecological, they are not just social, but also have even human lives ramification on that as well.
Mr. Majo Kudomi, I don't know how you want to take that on, given that from what my brother has said here in the studio, it would seem like we either are not paying attention to these wetlands, but we are completely ignoring them. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. No. Good. Very, very, very good point. And Professor Onoja there he's hit the nail right on the head. We can't overemphasize the importance of wetlands, and the fact that they're being so massively degraded is just yet another reflection of the terribly precarious situation that we human beings are putting ourselves into. Just a little earlier on your program, for instance, there we are still talking about COVID a year later. And the reality is that one of the major drivers of zoonotic pandemics is not just the destruction of the biosystems, not just the massive extinction of species, which we are driving in a totally unprecedented way, but particularly when we do this in the wetland biome, by not paying very, very close, good attention to the massive destruction we are doing to our wetlands. We are actually welcoming more pandemics. And the reality is that God Almighty has used nature to press humanity's reset button, because we're going against certain laws and regulations which run the gamut of physics to biophysics, from physics to biophysics to the metaphysics. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the laws of action and reaction. In physics, we're talking of Newton's third law of dynamics. For every action, there is a reaction, okay? When we're going into the metaphysics, taking it to the spiritual realm, we're talking of the laws of karma, the laws of consequences, the laws of action and reaction, the laws of, whatsoever a man soweth, so surely shall he reap. And we have been sowing this massive, aggressive destruction into nature, blasting the nonsense out of the wetlands, which is one of our most valuable resource bases. And of course, nature is reacting. So it's a wake-up call. COVID is actually a massive, massive wake-up call, a reset button for humanity that, hey, you've caused enough damage to the miracle of creation, whilst you're professing love to the Creator, who says in all his major scripture that you should care for his creation, you should be a gardener of his creation. While expressing that love to the Creator, you're wrecking the creation. So it's a huge wake-up call, and wetlands need to be protected and preserved. Thank God for the one that Professor Onoja mentioned, the Hadejia Nguru, because that is where a whole lot of people are actually living from. They're living from that wonderful, wonderful wetland, which has been, it's been attacked, but it hasn't been destroyed. So it needs to be preserved.
Yeah, Professor, as he calls you. We're told that wetlands, parts of wetlands are also plant life on water.
Yeah.
And I remember many years ago, we had the issue of water hyacinths in Lagos.
Yeah.
Can you describe those as wetlands then?
No. Those water hyacinths actually are what we call invasive species. Yes, the water hyacinths are what we call invasive species.
I knew there had to be a difference.
Yes, water hyacinths, because usually invasive species are species that occur in a place where they don't naturally occur. So what they do is that we have what we call the enemy release hypothesis, where when an invasive species leaves its natural environment to a place where it is not known to occur naturally, it doesn't move with its enemies that controls its population. And because of that, it grows beyond. There's nothing that regulates, that checks its population. Yes. Nature has put everything in place. There's predator-prey relationship, where when the prey population is getting too much, the predator-prey will prey on them. Predator population will prey on them and make sure that they keep it there. Yeah. But for the hyacinths, because they're invasive, they just grow out of bounds and then block the waterways. So they are very different. Okay. You may find some hyacinth in our wetlands, quite all right. You have some invasive species in the wetlands, and they also cause their own problems as well. But that does not mean that they are advantageous in that sense, because they also cause problems for the wetlands. For instance, the Hadejia Nguru wetlands I mentioned, we have an invasive species called the typha. The typha it blocks the waterways, and when it does that, when it rains, it doesn't allow free flow of water. And the fisher folks don't get enough space to be able to go about their trade. And also the migratory species that migrate all the way from Europe into Africa, during winter, we have over hundreds of thousands of them, as the last time we did a count. They don't have enough space to also have enough water body to move around freely. So that blocks the waterway. And then we usually work with the communities there to ensure that we clear all of those places. So to answer your question directly, water hyacinth and other invasive species also destroy wetlands. And that is mostly because of human activities as well.
It's all down to human activities.
Yes. So talking about those human activities, what are the challenges that the Conversation Foundation has had over the years protecting these wetlands that you talked about? Because if we continue to encroach them, there are consequences we are not even aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we'll lose some species because we've not done all our assay of all the species that we have in these wetlands. So we may lose some species that will never be known to science or to humans, and the importance that they may bring to us. That's number one. And secondly, if we continue that way, we have our aquifers. Wetlands are the freshwater aquifers. We used to say that the next world war may not be because of anything, but because of freshwater. The world is fast gradually losing its freshwater. And wetlands are our aquifers. giving us fresh water. So over the years, we have been working with the government to ensure that their policies don't affect wetlands, especially when you have indiscriminate dredging of wetlands or sand filling of wetlands. What people don't realize is that when you sand fill the place, you are not actually absorbing the water, you are displacing the water, and water never forgets its level. And that is why when it rains, we see what happens in Lekki, we see what happens there in VI, because those places were wetlands, and when they were sand filling it, they never provided a place so that when the floodwaters come, they go back there. And that's exactly what we do at the Lekki Conservation Center. We have so much water coming in there and absorb water there. During the rainy season, you see that our water level normally rises up. Imagine if that place is sand-filled as well, and we unleash that volume of water to that environment.
Comma. We shall come back to this conversation after this break.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying with us. Yes, Professor Onoja.
Oh, wow. Oh, my.
Yes, you were telling us something before we went on that break.
Yes.
Yes.
So as I was saying, if you imagine the volume of water that LCC absorbs, because when water flows all the way from the Agungi axis of Lekki, it has a way of finding its way because of the sand filling that's taking place. So the LCC is now kind of a valley. So we absorb so much water there. So if that volume of water is unleashed in that environment, then you could imagine what happened to Lekki Phase 1 last time. That's a similar situation. So
yes.
If we work with government to ensure that when the policies don't really affect wetlands, we need to have a concrete policy on how to sand fill these places. We are not saying that their development must take place, but development should take place side by side with the environment. Because whatever we do, if we don't put the environment in place, if we don't put the environment first, it will come back and bite us, and it will bite very hard.
Mr. Majekodunmi, but we know that God has put everything in this world for the benefit of man. So should we not live because we're protecting wetlands and protecting the environment? Human beings need houses to live in. So construction has to go on for the benefit of man.
Yes and no, but we also know that God is very, very forgiving, forgives you all the time. Human beings, man will forgive you a lot of the time, but nature does not have the capacity to forgive. Nature gives. Whatever you give Mother Nature, she gives you back. You know, you plant cassava, she gives you back cassava. You know, as my namesake said way back then, you know, you cannot plant cassava and harvest cocoyam. And if you think you can, then you really need a serious renewal of your mind. And this is actually what is going on now. Let's face it, you know, 2020 was an unprecedented year. We've never experienced anything remotely like that, apart from maybe one or two small isolated communities that might have been in a war situation. But the whole globe to be locked down, and we're still going through it. Now we're hearing of variations of the virus. Of course, there'll be mutations and so on. And we're so lucky that COVID is it's actually a benign virus in terms of its mortality rate and so on, even though the infectiousness is high. You know, by the time you now mix COVID with Ebola and some other horrendous disease, that's when you realize that nature will fight back. Nature gives you back. And this is where a lot of the Old Testament Gospels came from. You know, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, so surely shall he reap. Christian philosophy, it's there in the Buddhist philosophy, the law of karma. It's there in the Islamic philosophy. It's there in all our religions, action and reaction. And the reality is that we have been expressing too much of the negativity of our nature. Yes, the Creator gave us dominion, and we've totally misunderstood and misused the expression of that word. Dominion is stewardship. And a good steward is a servant So we're supposed to be servants of the creation. We're supposed to be guardians of the creation. And it only makes sense if the creation, like the wetland, is responsible for so much of our life support systems. Onoja was telling us about the clean water. It has a wonderful filtration way, a process that it goes through that takes out pollutants and cleans up water. So you get your fresh water from the wetlands. And it's a wonderful breeding ground for so many species. Apart from that, the wetland areas are one of the most effective carbon sinks, okay? And we now know, without any iota of doubt, unless you're still blowing this trumpet to this Trump person in America and all that, without any iota of doubt, the biggest issue, the biggest problem facing humanity is actually climate change. And climate change has been affecting a lot of the wetlands. It's beginning to impact on the Hadejia Nguru wetland, which is a tremendous resource. And what is the major way of removing the excessive carbon dioxide from the atmosphere? Oh, it is vegetation, and particularly the type of vegetation that you have in the wetlands. So if we're going to look at it from a metaphysical or a scriptural point of view, yes, the earth is for our dominion. The earth is there for our use, but we must use it in a loving and caring way. After all, in our scripture, the most important commandment of all, when Christ was faced with the lawyers and so on, and they said, okay, how about, he said, love God above all else and love your neighbor as yourself. And so the expression of love of God has to permeate into caring for his creation, which is the life support system of our neighbor. And guess who our most important neighbor is? Our children, So it's a wake-up call, and I believe that we're going to answer this call, and we're going to have a renewal of our minds, a transformation of our way of thinking, and we won't put greed and selfishness as our major priority. Profit before people can never take us anywhere.
If you don't mind me butting in for just a moment, there are perhaps a good number of people right now watching and listening to you who are wondering what the characteristics of a wetland are. Perhaps they even have it in their backyards and they don't even know that it's a kind of wetland. Is it just, does it have to be a very big place for it to be a wetland that we need to preserve or conserve? Or what are those characteristics so that people can identify it in their environment and perhaps do their own bit to protect or conserve it, or, as you said, to do exactly what God wants us to do with it?
Excellent question. Great observation. Yeah, any area, any patch of land that gets wet, even if it's small, and it gets wet a lot, that is, when it rains, it's prone to some sort of flooding. That's a wetland. Like the Nigerian Conservation, a wonderful, wonderful wetland. That's a much larger one. So any area that is prone to getting flooded, that is going to get very wet, that's your wetland. And do please try whatever you can do to preserve it. And also insist on government to do that. And I must say, we give full kudos to the Lagos State government, because only last week, a declaration was made from Mr. Governor putting a total embargo on dredging offshore of the banana area of Lagos, which is very, very positive. This needs to be extended very, very quickly into the whole of the Lekki zone. There has to be large areas that are totally reserved, that will be totally untouched, like the LCC, like Lufasi Park, which is also part of a small wetland. But further down, the wetlands must be protected. And if you do sand fill, do it very scientifically, so you put at least the most effective type of massive drainage systems that you can into that whole project of development. And then once you do that, you can do what you want to do. You can develop and build your house, okay? Or our sister there, if she wants to be benign, she can build her house on stilts. She doesn't have to build her house on sand fill.
Well, it's well, she'll probably answer you in good time. But it's a delicate balance here, Mr. Noja. When on the one hand, a good number of people might say a wetland is an undeveloped place. Let's put tar on it so that it can look like a developed place.
Yeah.
Okay. You probably have challenges, communicating to people that a wetland is to be left like that, conserved accordingly. How do we balance this delicate thing?
First of all is the messaging. You see, we tell people that we are not apart from the nature. We are part of nature. So if we see it from that point of view, then whatever actions we take, we will be able to look at it as we are part of it. Now, even in developed world, you see, they have run on ahead and they've seen some of the mistakes they've done, and they are trying to recreate them artificially. We have not gone to that stage yet. We still have the natural. So why not we incorporate our designs into such things? For instance, Mr. Bajoku jokingly mentioned about stilts. A typical example is where you have makoko. I think it's just because it's dirty. If not, if it's well planned, that is how it should be. You see, when you build on stilts, when the water rises, it rises beneath you. When it goes down beneath you. You don't interrupt it, it doesn't interrupt you. So what can we do when for our designers and our developers that will be able to incorporate nature instead of fighting against nature, which nature will fight back?
Or eradicating.
Yes. Instead of fighting against it,
There
why not?
used to be
build
houses like that in those days.
Exactly.
But I don't think anybody builds them anymore.
Exactly. So what's the need for you to build billions of dollars mansions and then at the end of the day they turn into swimming pools? We've seen that happen.
Yeah.
So that is where we need to now sit back and see and think about our designs, our developers. We talk with them. How can we incorporate nature into this? Today we are talking about wetlands. We usually talk about forests as well. When we develop, can we integrate it? Can we have that integration between nature and man? And it's for our benefit at the end of the day. Because I usually say that when we talk about environmental conservation, we are not really talking about environmental conservation. We're talking about human conservation. Because you know what?
Yeah.
The environment will always take care of itself. But it takes care of itself at the detriment of humans. Because when you push water will do as if it has forgotten. When it's coming back, it will so whip you that you to clear everything, it will reclaim whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it will just adjust.
Yeah.
But we cannot adjust as fast. Okay. In the last documentary on nature, nature says that I am changing fast, but will you be able to catch up with me? And we don't adapt that fast. So we will go into extinction as humans.
Okay. February the 2nd
Okay.
was Wetlands
That's
Day,
yeah.
which was Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
So how did we celebrate it?
We had, usually, if not because of the COVID situation, we normally go to wetlands with school children, where we normally have activities surrounding them to create awareness on that, okay? And then, but for this one, we did a lot of celebration in different places where we had virtual conversations, and we even had the Honorable Minister of Environment and Honorable Minister of State for Environment also was at the virtual interaction where they had some very nice pronouncements that we'll be able to make, and then we'll push that through as well. So we use the opportunity to create awareness and also to try to get commitment from the government to ensure that we push that forward, especially creating more Ramsar sites in Nigeria. Because the more you create Ramsar sites, it gives us a kind of currency to be able to push for their protection. And especially our wetlands along our coast as well are very important because they also help in cushioning the effect of coastal erosion. And they also serve almost 45% of the fish population normally come to the wetlands around the coast to be able to spawn, and then they feed back. So eventually, you find out that whatever we talk about is eventually for our benefit as humans.
Communicating, this to people is one of the challenges that we have had. Perhaps the people who have these environments themselves may not have as much issue with it as government who wants to please the people, as we say. So, Mr. Majokodumi, from your experience, having been working on this environmental issue for so many years, what do you see as the body language of government at the, federal level to issues around the environment, wetlands, and the rest of them? You've referenced the Lagos State government doing what Lagos State government is doing. How about at the federal level? You've heard Mr. Onoja talk about the one around Lake Chad. What is, in your opinion, government attitude, body language, efforts at protecting these very important aspects of our environment, especially the wetlands that we're talking about today?
Important observation, because let's face it, in Nigeria, just about everything is determined by government's decisions. And fortunately, ever since we had the great fortune of having Amina Mohammed as our Minister of Environment, the attitude has definitely changed from the presidency right through into his cabinet. There's no doubt about that. And the current dispensation in the Ministry of Environment are giving very, very positive signals in terms of beginning to understand the gravity of the situation we are facing. And just a small reflection of that gravity is, if we just quote what has been said by people like Prince Charles of the UK, like Al Gore, like the current Secretary General of the United Nations, who recently said that the point of no return is no longer in the horizon. The point of no return for humanity is hurtling towards us. And this is why we're actually seeing indications of panic coming from the more enlightened quarters of the international community. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, Prince Charles launched a wonderful program called the Terra Carta, which is based on what you might remember is the Magna Carta, that is the human rights. This was a charter of 800 years ago that established, every human being has a basic fundamental human rights. This is now Terra Carta, Earth rights. And what he did was he actually was able to embrace some of the world's top financial institutions and some of the top corporate institutions to dedicate a large percentage of their income towards various environmental protection activities, including particularly the wetlands. And so we are now hoping that our own government will piggyback on this reality. And as I said, we're seeing good signals coming from particularly the Ministry of Environment on the federal level and one or two of the ministries on the state level, but not nearly enough. It doesn't still reflect the urgency and the gravity of the situation. Again, we remind ourselves, COVID was terrible. Everybody's crying about COVID, how awful COVID is. And then finally we beat COVID. But worse than COVID is waiting in the sidelines if we continue doing what we are doing that enabled the outbreak of COVID in the first place. So we are imploring the people in positions of decision-making to really, really continue in this wonderful trajectory. That lecture that Onoja was talking about, Professor was talking about, was a very, very good lecture. And the salient points there now need to be driven home to the people who are lecturing And the prayer is that they will take very definitive action because, as they say, action speaks a lot louder than words.
Yeah, Dr. Onoja, I have a tweet here from Victor Owo who says to ask you, from your last statement, do you mean that the Bar Beach will one day fight back?
Well, it was fighting back. It was fighting back. It did fight back. The construction that has gone on today is has kind of saved, and we were saying it has saved VI, but it is destroying Lekki, and silently. And that is why in 2017, 2019, 2020, even with Mr. Maje Kudomi, we have been crying aloud that the Alpha Beach area to Lafiaji area is being eaten up. It's been eaten up, and we have the beachhead. Before you reach the Sandfield areas, the beachhead is about, as the last time we measured, was about 35 meters away from the Sandfield area. So, and the force of the Atlantic Ocean is very brutal. So if it's able to hit the beachhead, which is natural, you can imagine what will happen to Sandfield areas.
Are you saying also this about other coastlines along the Nigerian,
the Atlantic
borders?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of coastal erosion that is going on. You see, when you want to trace back the issue of the Bar Beach, it started right in the 1900s when the first Commodore Channel was created by the Brits. And when they left, there used to be replenishment from history. But over time, it was ignored. And then it started eating up. And that is why Bar Beach disappeared, and the Ahmadu Bello was going to disappear before the intervention started taking place. But that intervention did not really, it solved the problem, VI, but pushed down the problem down to Lekki. Because there's the Atlantic Ocean has what we call the east-west current. And once that was interrupted, it turned circular. And that was why it was eating up the beachhead. So the Lagos State government magnanimously had groins there. But for you to put a groin, then it will start eating up the last part of the groin. So going towards the east. Now, from your question that, is it happening along the coast? It is happening. Because when you go to Ayetoro area of Ondo State, they're also experiencing the same problem. And that's because we have tampered with the natural vegetation, which were mangroves. You know, the way mangroves are, nature has put the architecture of mangroves. They have buttress roots that are stand top, so that when water comes, it breaks the current so that it doesn't erode.
Do we factor all these things in when we come up with all these amazing, quote unquote, amazing initiatives? Because I think, I remember seeing some information out there that the Cross River State government is also doing something, along the same, way of as Lekki.
Yeah, and that is usually where we normally have challenge, and we normally cry out to try to engage. It's not just everything, if you're not an expert in an area, it's not that everything that meets the eye. There are a lot of underlying things that you may tamper with, especially when it comes to nature, that you need to create that balance. You see, so we need to continue to engage governments in that conversation so that we'll be able to take all the ramifications. Because by the time you replace, it's very dangerous to replace green infrastructures with brown infrastructures, because brown infrastructures will not be able to eventually give you that thing that you're looking for. Because nature will always fight back. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Wow.
But as we round up, let me just quickly say, one of the things that we're doing for wetlands is to ensure that we can save as many wetlands as possible. And that's why we're working with the federal government, Federal Ministry of Environment, to see how we can declare more areas as Ramsar sites. Because when you have that status, then you're able to at least push more for the wetlands. We have the Finima Nature Park on Bonny Island, a 1,000-hectare park, which is playing a very significant role on the Bonny Island, where you have the LNG. So it is really playing a crucial role, and other wetlands as well. Yeah.
Dr. Joseph Onoja, Technical Director, Nigeria Conservation Foundation, and Mr. Desmond Evangelist. No, what did he say he was? Gardner Desmond Maje Kudume, environmentalist. Thank you very much for coming to tell us about this. And yes, Mr. Owo, you are right. Nature will always fight back. Not just the Bar Beach. Nature will always fight back. Every of God's creation has its place.
Exactly.
Even though God has given it all to humans. They're all under us, but we need to protect them so that they can protect us.
Exactly.
That's the message this morning. Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation.
Well, there is such a thing as corporate social responsibility, and a good number of things that we see around our help, our communities, one corporate organization or the other are doing one thing or the other to help our world, such as protecting the environment. You know, we've talked about that just now. But then there is also such a thing as personal social responsibility. I want to talk about just a tiny bit of that this morning in what has caused the deaths of so many people over the years. We received some figures from the Federal Road Safety Commission about tremendous numbers of people who have died as a result of road crashes. They even delineated between road crashes and accidents, saying accidents are some things you didn't expect to happen but did happen, but road crashes are things that happen as a result of some things we should have or shouldn't have done. But what are celebrity special marshals? I thought there were regular marshals, then there are special marshals, and now we have celebrity special marshals. Of course, some of you may know what that is about. The coordinator is with us this morning, Chris Kende Wandu. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. First of all, for those who do not know, what are celebrity or who are celebrity special marshals?
Thank you very much for having Ayo and Alero. Good morning to you. I hope you are keeping safe. Thank you very much. The celebrity special marshal, the Federal Road Safety. We are using like a normal marshals, but there's just a little distinction between us and the regular marshal. Don't forget there are two levels of within the road safety. You have the regular officers who wear uniform, the normal uniform, and members of the Federal Road Safety. Then we also have the other side, which is special marshal unit, which is voluntary, people who volunteer to be part of this Federal Safety, who give out their time, energy, money, and everything they have to be able to push the discourse and just to help out the officers and men road safety achieve set out objectives and set the objectives. Safety special unit is also part of the marshal unit. But what only the district pastor is there is what celebrities is very small unit, just carved out by the commercial Federal Road Safety, Osita Chidoka, during his new, where he tries to use celebrities, ambassadors for safety. So you see various organizations having ambassadors. You have corporate organizations having ambassadors endorsing their products and services. Why those ones are paid for? The celebrity special marshals are just volunteers within the celebrities, entertainment industry, and also media, who also within them have decided to assist the safety in pushing the discourse and making some of the objectives of the Federal Road Safety to be able to get across to Nigerians as it were. So that is just the distinction between your regular special marshal unit and the celebrity special unit.
Mr. Ando, I am supposed to be a marshal, but there seems to be a communication hiatus between us because I haven't heard from you guys in a number of years.
Well, you're a member of the Shasha Alero, but we will not to celebrate the Shasha. If you, by the time we endorse the celebrity special marshal, you will be here from us. The man sitting with there, Ayo, is a member of the celebrity special marshal unit. He has been a member for years, and we've been doing this together. Still talking about within Charles, Chamberlain is a member of the celebrity special marshal unit, and he has been part of the program. Nota is also a member. I think the 3 men we have chance, but we have them across other media houses, entertainment industry, music, comedy, blogging, name it. So what you belong to the special marshal unit, and you are supposed to be with the unit. So I've not been hearing from them. Then you have to talk to your unit commander, who's supposed to be going across to you, and you're supposed to be participating in patrols and the rest of. Now that you're saying on public TV, then probably we'll fine you for not doing job.
Well, before you find her, because I know you could take this higher, so before you do the finding, let's take a break so that I can beg you in the background. Do stay with us. Yeah, thanks for staying with us. We're still talking about this celebrity special marshals. You want to ask him a question?
Yes, Mr. Wando. How effective have these marshals been, seeing that they have no power to arrest anybody? Because I have had occasion where I have put on my uniform and actually directed traffic on Okwebi Road, but I couldn't arrest anybody who was doing the wrong thing. I don't have such powers.
That means I'll look for the pamphlet setting up the special marshal unit. I'm not talking about the celebrity special unit now. We are all one in one, as I said. I will look for the pamphlet and pass it on to you through Ayo. That is true. As a special marshal, you have all the powers in the world that the regular marshal of safety has to arrest. I don't know which one you want to use. All the powers that are into the regular marshal, special marshal have that right. So if you are at Okwebi or Ale or Tonyin Street or around the Ikeja or Lagos, part of Nigeria, and you are doing your duty as a special marshal, and you see anybody disobeying, what you need to do is do the needful. But you know that because just a single individual, I might not have the necessary instrument, whatever to use to be able to make them. Which is why we say that you should key yourself into it. What you do also you must have the number of the unit commander, that is road safety unit commander in charge of that zone. So if you're talking of Ikeja, you have the phone number of the Federal Road Safety Unit Command for that zone. If such happens, and anybody disobeys, all you need to do is call the unit commander. Tell him, sir, I am a special man. Something that is misbehaved. Can you send me a call? And you can rest assured that within 5 minutes, but the unit commander within that area will send you a call and they'll be able to assist you. So don't go out of your way to personally want to arrest somebody. They'll start fighting you or doing other things. Do the needful by just making sure to call the necessary. Even if you don't call if you can't get the unit command, you have the sector commander of your state, a very amenable man, should be able to send you his number as well. You call him, wherever he is, he will give you a backup from anywhere within Lagos State close to you, and you'll be able to do the necessary things you need to do. So you have the power to arrest. And when they also give, you can have they also issue the certificates and the rest of them, but you just don't do it yourself because you might not be able to do it.
Now, I also recognize that today there was an enlightenment campaign by the Lagos unit of the Celebrity Special Marshal. So this is a two-pronged question. On the one hand, what was the intention today, which you said was supposed to have commenced at 8 a.m. and perhaps is over now? You want to tell us how that went? And then, how far-reaching, since this is the Lagos unit we're talking about now, how widespread are the Celebrity Special Marshals unit in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Double barrel question, Ayo. First and foremost, we normally have our regular patrol as Celebrity Special Marshals. We do that quarterly. What we do is to do the normal enlightenment programs, go and rise and decide people, motorists and Nigerians, on the needs for them to be able to be cautious on the roads and to do the needful. Most of our job as Celebrity Special Marshal is that of advocacy. unlike the regular marshals, which are the FRC, which is in operation, each and the rest of them. Because of the nature of our job, what we do is try to ensure that people adhere to some of these issues and things they're supposed to do, telling them on the need to take alcohol, not to use their seatbelt, don't use phone, and for them. Because of the nature of where we are ourselves this time around, because of the 19 pandemic, that in itself has become a serious challenge for both the regular road safety officers as well as the special marshals. So what we have to do today is tailor our patrol, our quarterly patrol, in trying to align the public, especially the motorists as Nigerians, on the need for them to make sure that observe these protocols. And we've been around National Stadium related today, which is our point, and trying to make sure we give us face masks, we give us sanitizers, and we also talk to the motorists as well as passengers. I can tell you that close to over 80% of passengers and drivers are complying with the protocols. More than 80%. They don't wear their face masks, despite the fact that the Lagos government said that there should be space in buses. You can't find any space and of them. So it is a big challenge. And I know that the president recently signed into law the COVID-19 law, which empowers the law enforcement agencies to either arrest Nigerians or impose fines on them and arrest them. I don't know how we're going to do that, because it's going to be very hard to do that. But beyond that, we should also look at the point that now we as Nigerians should take personal responsibility for our safety. You don't need to wait for any statement to tell you what to do. You don't wait for the federal government to tell you what to. If you decide not to do needful, then you may end up finding yourself in a situation where you don't want to find yourself. But we, as British Special Marshals, we have been doing what we have been doing. I've been going on radio. Ayo and Alera will tell you this for free, that the Celebrities Marshals, we have programmed over 10 radio stations across Nigeria. And that has been given to us by free time by various radio stations and TV stations. Even Channels Television, you are doing wonderfully. You on a daily basis, we see what you do for road safety. You invite Marshal, you invite the sector commander, the rest of them to come and talk. Those are expensive airtime you are giving. You are not charging for it. That is also part of what you are doing now. Is part of your own. Also trying to put a voice to what it means. If we are to pay for this air that I am on now, I don't be able to pay it. So those are the kind of things we are doing and seeing people doing. The media in itself are very, very helpful in this way. But I think we still do more, because the challenge we have is that most Nigerians, not just the COVID-19 protocol, Nigerians drivers are very, very stubborn. Very, very stubborn set of people. An average person won't take one way, despite the fact that it is season cars, vehicles and cars. Now you still see taking one way, and people are still not keeping to speed limits. People are taking alcohol, the rest of it. And when they say, "Oh, the road is bad," and they say, "Yes, the road is definitely." The fact is, that same road where you have somebody having an accident, over 1,000 or 1,000 people have passed through that road without getting themselves involved in an accident.
Oh dear.
Very interesting.
Well, I hope we'll be able to get Chris back to conclude that conversation, because most certainly all those issues that he has raised are actually quite valid.
Cogent.
Yes, and but one of the things that scares me, gotta be honest, was the day the Corps Marshal himself, Dr. Boboye, was telling us the number of people, hundreds of people that have died as a result of the road crashes within 1 month.
Not accidents.
Not accidents. He said there's a difference between accidents and road crashes. So, well, Chris, before we continue our own conversation, so what kind of responses have you gotten from these personal social responsibility initiatives that people subscribe to? So on the one hand, they are picked perhaps by, you. On the other hand, they have to, accept it themselves, accept to be members of the unit, Celebrity Special Marshals Unit, pretty much saying, they're doing something to contribute to nation building, so to speak. What kind of responses have you gotten all over the country? You still haven't told me how widespread, the unit is all over Nigeria. What kind of responses that you have you gotten all over the nation, and what kind of feedback do you get as to how they are performing?
Yes, talking about spread, presently we're in Lagos, we're in Abuja. I also trying to get our feet in the northern part of the country. We also setting up a unit also in Ogun State. The strength of celebration is just under 100, unlike the normal special marshals that runs in thousands. And why is it? Because of the specific nature of the membership. And we're talking about ship. I've talked about Timberlane. I've talked about is in charge of the nation, the coordinations. I'm just coordinating. We have Labour, we have AY, we have Baskasi.
Our connection is very, very good at this point, but I hope we'll be able to disconnect and reconnect. Possibly we'll be able to get some better connection there. I think this underscores just one thing, Alara, and that's the fact that on the one hand is the challenge of road safety on its own, and that the need for various people to contribute their own quota to nation building, irrespective of how small it is.
Indeed, indeed. I think it's a good thing that this was initiated. And I hope that those who belong to this unit are actually taking the job seriously, because they can make a difference.
Yes.
I mean, an Okebakasi, for instance, tells someone not to drive crazy. Because it is coming from Okebakasi, the person might laugh, but he might remember the encounter with Okebakasi and tell stories about it. And after that day, oh boy, I arranged myself for, that kind of thing. I think it's a good idea.
Well, perhaps that's all. He, of course, mentioned a few other names: musicians, comedians, broadcasters, and things like that. If these people should stop you, just as you said, But it'll actually be nice to be able to arrest someone for a change. Just again. But what are you looking at?
You want to arrest someone?
Why am I a member of a paramilitary unit?
If you can't use your powers.
Yeah, use my power.
I agree with you.
It's especially you.
I agree with you.
I mean, you have a.
I'll be bringing the list of those I arrest in the next 1 month.
All right, Sunrise continues in a moment. Please stay with us.
Yes, you just saw her, and maybe if you don't know her name is Leah. Haha. She was born.
Not Leah. Just saying. It's just saying.
Now, those of you who sent that message that Ayo is corrupting me, you see how right you are.
I'm just trying to help.
She's an Afro-pop singer, songwriter, and poet, but her real name is Abdulsalam Suliat Mudasola. And she came into limelight after she inked a deal with Davido Music Worldwide, DMW. This made her the first female to be signed onto the record label. And recently, she released her debut single, Mellow. I hope I got that right. Welcome to Sunrise, Leah.
Hi, good morning. Oh, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me.
You sound cheery enough. It's still morning.
To be I'll wait to you, and everyone's really stuck. The traffic is really bad.
Oh dear. Well,
I wish
sorry.
I could down it.
That's what the expressway is like. So you studied linguistics from the University of Ilorin, And then you
Yeah.
decided to start singing.
Yeah.
Just talk us through that journey, please.
I've always been a singer as a child. Singing has always been my something that I really have passion for, great passion. And deep down, I've always known I'd be a singer. And we have to go to school. I didn't just study linguistics, by the way. I did BA Yoruba, Bachelor of Arts in Yoruba. I studied Yoruba, major Yoruba, and it was really amazing. And after school, 5 years in school, I just made that decision in my head, in my heart, like, okay, let's go back to music because music is what I love. It's always been.
Just wondering how Daddy took that decision. So, Dad, I'm going to use this BSc in linguistics in Yoruba to sing. I'm wondering how Daddy reacted to that. So that's in a way asking how much of a parental influence brought you to where you are now?
Parental influence.
Yeah.
They've always been supportive. They've always been No, at first my father wasn't really involved, fathers and you can't be a music, you can't be a female artist, it can be very crazy. But my mom has always been my number one fan. She's always been in support and she's always pushing like, yeah, keep going, you can do this one. So 100, it has been 100. I fully support my music career.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe other fathers would take a cue and say, let her sing or let him rap, But
yeah,
then,
and support now. They don't have a choice, do they?
Oh, really?
Because I'm very stubborn too.
You're very stubborn. That's
I'm
understandable.
very, very stubborn.
We hear that for every achievement in the world, there's an element of stubbornness that is required to be the great that you desire to be. Did you have any inspiration? Yeah, do you have any inspiration before you decided that let's go the whole 9 yards into music?
Yeah, a lot of people inspired me. My mom, she sings too. So it's indoor singing. We sing while cooking, washing clothes, washing plates. People would always comment us like, mother and daughter, you guys are doing well. I'll be like, yeah, thank you. Apart from my mom, Whitney Houston, I love her very much. Fela Kuti, Onyeka Onwenu, Busola Oke, Shola Alison. It was Dolly Parton. I really scored their music back then and they inspired me a lot. And, a lot of great artists now too. Davido, my brother, their hunger for success and everything just really inspire me.
Yes, Leah, since you bring in Davido, let's just go there. How did you end up being the first female, or is it the only female in Davido music?
Right.
Huh?
It was on this. I'll try to. It was on a fateful day. I think it was on a Friday. Friday, was it? Yeah, Friday. Yeah, like 2 a.m. thereabout. I was out with Vanessa. That's my manager, by the way. We were out. We were going from. We're just moving from one bar to another, attending listening parties that night. Went for B-Red's listening party at first, then Peruz's listening party. Then from Peruz's listening party, she kind of knows Peruz, like they talk like a lot. Then we're in Peruz's car and she went, "Oh, Peruz, meet my artist. Her name is Leah." She was saying, and Peruz was like, "Oh, nice. And she went, "Can I connect to your Bluetooth? You need to hear a song." In my head, I was pinching her like, "Vanessa, I don't even know Peruz. Calm down. I think you're doing too much. Calm down." She just slapped like, "Well, girl, leave me alone." And she connected to Perez's Bluetooth and she played my song. And Perez was like, "Oh, play that song again. And she played again. From there, we went to this club. David was at the club. And Perez, I was just standing in one corner I was exhausted that day because we had a very busy day. And she just said, "Oh, where is she? Where is she?" And behold, in front of me was Davido. Like, then he went, "I hear say you bad." I'm like, "I'm trying," because it was really noisy. Then he said, "Oh, let them play a song." Voila, they played my song. And right there, he said, "You bad though, I want to sign you." And I'm like, "Am I dreaming?" Then, "What are you guys doing tomorrow?" We said nothing. He said, "Okay, you guys are going to Abuja with me tomorrow." From there to Abuja, from there to Ghana, from there back to Lagos, and just like that. It was like a dream.
And just
It was
like that,
good.
you became the first lady of DMW.
Just like that. God is good. Just like that.
No, if you
I had
will
no
put
idea.
if you put a tag to your message, what would it be? Well, the style is Afro pop, you say, but if you put a tag to the message of your music, what would you say your music philosophy is?
Majorly, I talk about I don't like to do music for the sake of doing music. I like my music to say something to the listener. I want to connect with you. I want my listeners to know that I feel you on this level. I see you. I feel what you're feeling. So I think I'll tag my music as maybe Afro soul. It's deep. It's quite deep. You know, yeah, Afro soul, Leah, Afro Leah soul, something like that.
What's the message? What's the core message of your music?
Basically telling people to live. You know, life is short. You only live once. Just keep living. Believe, have faith, and peace be unto you.
Okay, this is the beginning of the year. This is the beginning of the year. So what is your plan going forward?
At the moment, we're preparing. I've been working tirelessly, sleepless nights, planning for my EP. At the moment, it should be out very soon, and I can't wait for everybody to hear that. So the plan now is for us to put my EP out first, then others will follow. But you know, there's a lot of holdbacks right now. We released Mellow sometime in December, and we can't do too much because of COVID-19, really holding a lot of things back, concert shows, and holding people back from doing things that they love. So for now, it's just about putting the EP out. We can't wait for Corona to leave, so we get to do what we have to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Just before you go, Leah, you are young in this music business. I'm sure there are other younger people who would like to follow in your footsteps. In half a minute, what advice would you give them?
I'll tell them to keep dreaming. Focus. You have every right to dream. And work hard as you can. Keep working. Dreams do come true. Keep working. It's going to be just all right. And I see them too. I see them on every level.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leah. Abdulsalam Suliat Mudassala. Thank you very much for being our guest on Sunrise.
Thank you for having me
this morning. And that about wraps up Sunrise for this day. Please don't forget to social distance, wash your hands, wear your mask, especially wear your mask. I am Alero Edu, wishing you a very happy weekend indeed. See you next week.
And keep dreaming. And don't forget your cocoa. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Please stop looking at me like that. Bye for now.